General Hospital will reveal Steve Burton recently made headlines by sharing his thoughts on his return to General Hospital and announcing that he would not be renewing his contract with the show. This revelation sparked a wave of reactions within the fan community, particularly among longtime viewers of Jason Morgan. His return was initially expected to bring fresh momentum to the series, but the storyline that unfolded left even the actor himself feeling disappointed. In a recent interview, Steve Burton openly expressed his frustration with how the writers had handled Jason's character. He had hoped for a compelling storyline, one that would allow Jason to grow in a meaningful way. However, the reality he faced upon returning to General Hospital did not meet those expectations. Instead of being given a dynamic and well-structured plot, Jason was placed in situations that contradicted his past character development, making him feel unrecognizable to both the actor and the fans. Steve's disappointment was not just about the lack of strong material but also about the inconsistencies in Jason's story arc. His current involvement in various conflicts lacked cohesion with his past experiences, making him feel disconnected from the character he had played for years. Instead of taking advantage of Jason's return to craft an engaging narrative, the writers chose to portray him in a way that diminished his presence, stripped him of his clear sense of direction, and, at times, made him act entirely out of character. "I was really excited to come back," Steve admitted. "I thought Jason would have a more compelling story, but that just wasn't the case. I read the script and asked myself, is this really Jason Morgan? Is this the character I've played for over 2 decades? I didn't recognize him anymore." This disillusionment ultimately led Steve to the decision not to continue with the role. His initial enthusiasm for a gripping, well-developed story had been replaced by a series of fragmented, uninspired plotlines that did not justify his long-term commitment to the show. His announcement about leaving the series stirred mixed reactions among the fanbase. Some fully understood his reasons and agreed that the writing needed improvement, while others expressed deep disappointment at the thought of General Hospital losing one of its most iconic characters. Although Steve Burton's departure may be controversial, it is clear that his decision was not made lightly. His frustration reflects deeper issues with how General Hospital has been handling its legacy characters, especially in terms of giving them meaningful and consistent storylines. Fans continue to hope that the show's writers will reconsider their approach, allowing Jason Morgan to return in a way that stays true to his core identity. However, given the current state of affairs, that possibility remains uncertain. He outlined 5 key reasons why he felt his role was no longer a good fit, and many fans completely agreed with him. The first reason was that Jason had lost his sense of direction. In the past, Jason Morgan was a man of clear purpose, guided by unwavering principles and a deep commitment to protecting the people who mattered most to him. He operated with a strong moral compass, even within the gray areas of his criminal underworld ties. Whether it was standing by Sonny Corinthos, ensuring Sam and Danny's safety, or putting himself in danger for those he considered family, Jason's actions always reflected a strong sense of responsibility and loyalty. However, upon his return, Jason seemed to have lost that focus. Instead of maintaining his well-defined role as a protector and strategist, he had been inserted into a series of disconnected storylines that diluted his character's core essence. Most notably, he had become overly involved in Sasha's life while neglecting his own family, including his son Danny. Fans were quick to point out that Jason, a man who had always prioritized his children despite his dangerous lifestyle, now seemed strangely indifferent to his own responsibilities as a father. His emotional detachment from Danny and his other loved ones felt unnatural, raising questions about whether the writers had truly understood Jason's character arc. This shift in direction made Jason feel like a shadow of his former self. Instead of making decisive moves and following a clear narrative path, he appeared adrift, reacting to circumstances rather than shaping them. The once dominant presence he carried now felt watered down, leaving fans frustrated at how far he had strayed from the Jason Morgan they once knew. For many, this disconnect made it difficult to remain invested in his storyline. Rather than watching Jason navigate compelling conflicts that challenged his principles or forced him to make impossible choices, hallmarks of his character in the past, viewers saw him absorbed in situations that felt irrelevant to his long-established identity. As a result, fans struggled to relate to him, and his return, which had initially sparked excitement, quickly became a source of disappointment. The second reason revolved around the absurd secrets that Jason was keeping. One of the most glaring inconsistencies in his recent storyline was his decision to hide the truth about Michael Corinthos being the father of Sasha's child. Not only was this secrecy unnecessary, but it also directly contradicted Jason's core principles. Jason had always been known for his honesty and unwavering sense of justice. While he operated in morally complex situations, his decisions were driven by loyalty, integrity, and a deep sense of responsibility. He was never one to manipulate the truth for personal gain or needlessly keep secrets that could harm the people he cared about. Yet, in this storyline, he was portrayed as deliberately concealing a crucial fact that served no real purpose. This deviation from his established character made no logical sense and left fans questioning the writer's approach to his role. What made this even more perplexing was Jason's decision to claim Sasha's unborn child as his own. This twist not only felt forced but was also completely out of character. Jason was never the type to fabricate relationships or create unnecessary deceptions, especially when it involved a child's future. His actions in this situation felt contrived, as though the writers were shoehorning him into a storyline that didn't fit him, instead of crafting a natural progression that respected his long-established traits. Fans found it difficult to reconcile this version of Jason with the man they had followed for decades. Rather than seeing him act with the calculated decisiveness that once defined him, he was now engaging in unnecessary deception, making choices that felt inconsistent with his past behavior. This shift only further distanced viewers from the character, making it clear that Jason's presence on the show had become increasingly disconnected from what made him compelling in the first place. Another major issue that made Jason's character difficult to accept was his loss of control over his temper. In the past, Jason was known for his cold, calculating demeanor. He was the kind of man who remained calm under pressure, never allowing emotions to cloud his judgment. His ability to assess situations with precision and act only when absolutely necessary was what made him such a formidable presence in General Hospital. However, in his most recent storyline, Jason's composure seemed to have completely unraveled. Rather than displaying his signature restraint, he was suddenly reacting with impulsive aggression. One of the most shocking moments was when he physically attacked Drew over a personal dispute involving Michael. This level of emotional outburst was entirely unlike Jason, who had always chosen his battles wisely and rarely let personal conflicts dictate his actions. His attack on Drew felt rushed and unnecessary, making it seem as though Jason was acting out of character for the sake of forced drama rather than genuine narrative progression. Even more concerning was the incident where Jason pulled a gun on Sidwell to protect Lucky. While Jason had always been a dangerous man when necessary, he was never reckless. His past actions were guided by a calculated sense of control, ensuring that violence was a last resort rather than a first instinct. By turning him into someone who resorted to extreme measures so quickly, the writers stripped Jason of the qualities that once made him an intriguing, disciplined anti-hero. This sudden shift in Jason's behavior did not sit well with fans, as it made him seem more like a loose cannon than the composed, intelligent enforcer they had come to admire. Rather than operating with his usual strategic mind, Jason was now engaging in reckless, impulsive decisions that lacked the depth and careful execution that once defined his character. The transformation felt abrupt and unearned, leaving viewers frustrated with how little thought seemed to have gone into maintaining his consistency. Instead of the cool and composed figure who always had control over a situation, Jason was now written as unpredictable and reactionary, diminishing the appeal that made him such a captivating character in the first place. Not only that, but Jason had also lost his sharp instincts. In the past, he was always known for his ability to assess situations with precision, anticipate threats before they materialized, and maintain control over even the most chaotic circumstances. His intelligence and strategic thinking were what set him apart, allowing him to navigate the criminal underworld while staying one step ahead of his enemies. No matter how dangerous a situation became, Jason always had a plan, and his decisions were calculated to ensure the best possible outcome. However, upon his return, Jason seemed to have lost the sharp intuition that once defined him. Instead of being the master tactician that fans admired, he was repeatedly manipulated and blindsided by those around him. He no longer displayed the foresight that made him such a dangerous opponent and a powerful ally. Instead, he often reacted too late, failing to see betrayals coming and making choices that put him at a disadvantage. This decline in his strategic abilities was particularly frustrating for viewers, as it stripped away one of Jason's most defining traits. Rather than operating with the quiet intelligence and careful precision that had made him an iconic character, he was now easily deceived and left struggling to regain control. The calculated decision-making that once made him so compelling had been replaced with uncertainty and poor judgment. Many fans found this change difficult to accept because it made Jason feel unrecognizable. The character who once dictated the course of events through his sharp thinking was now being outplayed at every turn. Without his ability to read situations and make smart, tactical moves, Jason had lost the very essence of what made him an elite enforcer and strategist. Instead of seeing him manipulate circumstances in his favor, viewers were left watching a version of Jason who seemed aimless and reactive, making it difficult to remain invested in his presence on the show. Finally, Jason had lost the emotional depth and devotion to his family that once defined him. One of the most striking aspects of his character had always been his unwavering loyalty and deep love for those closest to him, particularly his son, Danny. Despite his dangerous lifestyle and complicated relationships, Jason was a father who always prioritized his child's well-being, ensuring that Danny was protected, even if it meant making painful sacrifices. His love for his family was not always openly expressed, but it was evident in his actions, his willingness to put himself in harm's way to shield them from danger, his quiet but steadfast support, and his deep sense of responsibility. However, upon his return, Jason seemed to have abandoned this core part of his character. Instead of prioritizing his son and making decisions based on his family's well-being, he had been written into storylines that made it seem as though they were an afterthought. His relationship with Danny, which was once a defining part of his narrative, had been pushed to the background, leaving fans questioning whether Jason even remembered what truly mattered to him. This detachment from his loved ones made Jason feel unfamiliar to longtime viewers. The man who had once been willing to risk everything for his family now appeared disconnected from them, placing other obligations and interests above the people he once held dear. His interactions lacked the emotional weight that had made him such a compelling and layered character in the past. Instead of seeing him struggle with the conflict between his dangerous world and his desire to be a father, fans were left watching a version of Jason who seemed indifferent, as if his emotional ties had been completely severed. For many fans, this was the most disappointing change of all. Without his fierce loyalty and deep-rooted love for his family, Jason no longer felt like Jason. The emotional core that had always made him relatable, despite his often ruthless actions, had been stripped away. If Jason was no longer a man who would do anything to protect his son, then what was left of him? This detachment from his most important relationships made it clear that Jason, as he was currently written, had lost the very heart of what made him such a powerful presence in General Hospital. These revelations sparked a wave of mixed reactions within the General Hospital fan community. Steve Burton's decision not to renew his contract divided audiences, with some completely supporting his stance while others expressed deep disappointment. Many longtime fans agreed that the show's writing had taken a turn for the worse, and they believed Steve's departure was a wake-up call for the writers to reassess their approach to Jason Morgan's character. They felt that his criticisms were valid, particularly regarding Jason's lack of direction, inconsistent motivations, and emotional detachment from his family. To them, Steve's decision was justified, as it reflected the growing frustration among viewers who had been disheartened by the way General Hospital had handled one of its most iconic figures. On the other hand, some fans were devastated by the news, as Steve Burton was the primary reason they continued to watch the show. His portrayal of Jason Morgan had been a staple of General Hospital for decades, and for many, his presence was irreplaceable. These fans argued that even if the writing was flawed, the show without Steve would be far worse. They feared that losing him would leave a significant void, further weakening the series and making it difficult for them to stay invested. One viewer took to social media, expressing their disappointment. "If he's gone, the story will be a complete mess, especially for his son, Danny. It just won't feel the same." Others echoed similar sentiments, questioning whether they would continue watching if Jason Morgan was written out or recast. Regardless of whether Steve Burton ultimately leaves or not, one thing is certain: Jason Morgan's role in General Hospital stands at a major crossroads. His character has been a cornerstone of the show for years, and his departure would mark a significant shift in the narrative landscape. If the writers fail to course-correct and bring Jason back to his roots, the show risks alienating a large portion of its audience. Longtime viewers have expressed frustration with recent creative choices, and if those concerns are not addressed, General Hospital may lose not only one of its most beloved characters but also a loyal segment of its fan base. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining whether the writers can salvage Jason's character or if General Hospital will have to move forward without one of its most defining figures.